Good afternoon, I am MD and this is the fourth branch program. Tonight we have a very special program. We will be discussing the state of the Republic. But we will be putting a lot of emphasis on an important aspect of what has caused the Republic to be in the state where it's at today. We're referring more specifically about the legislative branch, which seems to be completely non-existent. Before we delve into that particular topic, let's take a look at a few quotes which may help us through this process. Ignorance is neither private nor personal. Ignorance puts a very heavy burden on society. Ignorance cripples democracy and keeps generations in bondage. It does take considerable amount of knowledge just to realize the extent of one's ignorance. The highest form of ignorance is when you reject something you don't know anything about. Adolf Hitler said, if you tell a big enough lie and tell it frequently, it will be believed. Make the lie big, make it simple, keep saying it, and eventually they will believe it. I bet you that Adolf Hitler didn't know that Robert Mueller will be around. It probably would have had to revise that statement. Jokes aside, before we start discussing the topic tonight, a couple of reminders. Number one, all the topics that we have discussed thus far, they are available on the People Branch YouTube channel. So if you go to the People Branch YouTube channel, not only this topic that we will be discussing in a short little while, and as well as the previous topics, they all archive on the People Branch YouTube channel. Now, a couple of items that's been making news in the past few days. 2 days ago, the New York Times published an op-ed. And that op-ed was penned by an anonymous individual. Now, what makes it unprecedented? Two reasons. Number one, it is very rare, if at all, that a publication would put any information to the public without attributing a name to it. And the second reason that the op-ed was, the situation seems unprecedented, is the fact that the op-ed seemed to have been penned by a high-level official in the Trump administration. The op-ed did paint a very unflattering picture of the White House, the chaos that they have to cope with on a daily basis, and also the fact that the individual who painted that scenario for the country posed as a guardrail to the Trump administration. Now, needless to point out that the White House has been very quick to accuse the individual of coward. White House Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders quickly pointed out that the individual should come out and identify himself or herself, because this is an act of cowardice. Donald Trump went a little bit further by labeling the person as the act, at least, as treason. Now, with this going on, there was a lot of uproar in the Trump administration and a lot of finger pointing, and needless to say that everybody is suspicious of everybody else. So almost like school children, one by one, high-level official had to come out and declare themselves, himself or herself, as not being the author of the op-ed. Even the First Lady, Melania Trump, had to issue a statement to declare that she was not the author of the op-ed. To make it official, her account was used to not only label the author of being a coward, but also to press the person to come out and identify himself or herself. Now, according to the former White House liaison to minority black community, Omarosa, she believed that the op-ed was penned by the Vice President Mike Pence. According to her, she had a number of emails that seems to have the hallmark of Mike Pence as being the author of the op-ed. And also Kellyanne, White House advisor to the president, also accused the vice president as being the author of the op-ed. Now, it should be noted that Mike Pence denied to be the individual behind the op-ed. Now, Trump has lambasted New York Times as a failing news organization, and also pressing New York Times to release the name of the individual who penned the op-ed. And last night at a rally in North Dakota, Donald Trump had demanded that his Attorney General Jeff Sessions find out who is the rat behind the op-ed. This is indeed unprecedented, and John Kelly, who at some point in the past had labeled the president as being an idiot, now is today tasked to feather out every individual who works in the White House, and hopefully to find out who is the snake behind that action. Truly interesting. Thursday night, September 6, 2018, Botham Jean, who is a resident of an apartment complex in Dallas, was gunned down in his own apartment by a Dallas police officer who, according to the preliminary report, entered the apartment and may have confused her apartment with Jean's apartment. And according to her report, she thought that Jean was an intruder and gunned Jean down, and the 911 call clearly indicated that the police officer must have mistaken Jean's apartment for hers, although Jean was immediately taken to the hospital, but he didn't make it. He was pronounced dead at the hospital. A warrant for the officer arrest was issued, and according to the chief of police, he planned to charge the officer of manslaughter. A side note, we are currently working on to bring you a series of Blacks in America, where every action, every process taken by the system of justice in the country seems to make certain that blacks are victimized at every step of the way. So we will bring you that series shortly. We're working on the detail of this topic. At a rally in Montana,
they like to use the impeach word. Impeach Trump. Maxine Waters, we will impeach
Donald
him.
Trump.
But he didn't do anything wrong. It doesn't matter. We will impeach him.
We will come back to
we
talk
will
about
impeach.
shortly.
But I say, how do you impeach somebody that's doing a great job, that hasn't done anything wrong? Our economy is good. How do you do it? How do you do it? How do you do it? We will impeach him. But he's doing a great job. Doesn't matter. Remember that line. He's doing a great job. That doesn't matter. We'll impeach him. It is a hell of a place in Washington. You know, I was thinking, if that happened, every time a Republican or a Democrat, opposite, got elected president. So let's say a Democrat gets elected someday. Hopefully it's a long time. But let's say a Democrat gets elected. And let's say we have a Republican House. We will impeach that Democrat, right? And then a Republican. We won by a lot. We won by a hell of a margin. That's a lot. That electoral college, we won by a lot. Okay, so we're in there. We've got the best employment numbers in our history. We've got the best economy in our history. You look at the numbers in every category, it's great. We're doing a great job. We're putting on phenomenal judges. And you take that and you do. Then what you're going to have is you'll have a country that's going to turn into a third world country. Because if the opposite party becomes president, every time before it even starts, before you've even found out whether or not he or she is going to do a great job, they'll say, we want to impeach him, and you'll impeach him. It's so ridiculous. But we'll worry about that if it ever happens. But if it does happen, it's your fault because you didn't go out to vote. Okay? You didn't go out to vote.
Here is how Emily Klotz, she's an English teacher at Houston Community College, Texas. Here is how she described Donald Trump. She said that Donald Trump is a drama whore and a ridiculous caricature of a person. He is a poor man's idea of a rich man, a weak man's idea of a strong man, and a stupid man's idea of a smart man. Now, back to that rally at Montana, rather. Earlier I mentioned North Dakota, but that particular rally happens in Montana on Friday where Trump was stomping to help a Republican keep his seat in the midterm election. Now, Donald Trump made a reference to a couple of items that we would like to quickly take a look at. He said that if Democrat take the House, they will impeach him. In fact, that's the whole point of his argument, that he will be impeached. Number one, this is extremely unprecedented to have, for the first time in the history of the United States, to have the President of the United States using the possibility of him being impeached as a rallying theme for an election. Now, you may not see anything wrong with that if you're a Trump-Republican, but think about it. Number one, it is really it is extraordinary that the president himself already resigned to the fact that he has done something to be impeached, because you don't impeach a president for doing nothing wrong. Although that's exactly what he said at the rally, but that has not happened. There have been 44 presidents before Donald Trump, and they have done a lot of things that people on both sides of the political spectrum didn't like. But those people were not impeached for that, for doing things that constituents didn't like. I didn't like George Bush taking the country to war, but George Bush wasn't going to be impeached for taking the country to war, and I wasn't the only one, and there were millions of people who did not like the fact that we went to war in Iraq. But you did not hear George W. Bush go on the campaign trail and worrying about being impeached for taking the country to war. But Donald Trump, knowing what he has done, remember from the very first time when this whole investigation started, and I keep reminding people of one thing about that investigation. Robert Mueller was not tasked to investigate Donald Trump. And that's what a lot of Trump-Republicans, and Trump-Republican, for those who have not heard the term before, are Republican converted to the Trump party. So they have abandoned Republican values, they have abandoned Republican principle, and now they have adopted, they have embraced everything that is wrong about everything that is not acceptable with as far as Republican values. So everything that Donald Trump comes up with, they have adopted, they have embraced that. Those are the Trump-Republican. So Robert Mueller was not tasked. When Robert Mueller was called in as special counsel, was appointed special counsel May 2017, the task was very specific. We just had an election, November 2016. We just had an election, and according to all of our intelligence agencies, a foreign entity meddled, interfered, and intervened in our democratic system. Now, this particular aspect of the problem is every American's problem, not just Democrat, not just Republican. Everybody who is an American citizen, everybody who is a patriot should be concerned that a foreign entity was involved in our democratic system. Now, the reason that there has been pushback is because Trump-Republicans hate the idea that since Donald Trump won the election, and there is a possibility, there is actually a high probability that that happened because of Russian interference. So they're pushing back on that and forgetting this, the very important aspect. The priority is not to support Donald Trump. The priority is not to support a political party, but the priority is to make certain that the country is not open for any foreign entity to do whatever they so like. Yesterday, it was the Republican Party who benefited of a foreign entity interference in our election. Tomorrow, it may not be Republican, it may be Democrat. Would that be acceptable? Would that be okay? The answer is absolutely not, because the only way to safeguard the system of democracy we have here in the United States is to prevent foreign entity, whether it's a state or an individual, from interfering in our system of democracy. Now, Robert Mueller was tasked to investigate not only this interference, because our intelligence agency already determined that's the case. They are 100% certain that was the case. Russia interfered, meddled in the 2016 election. There is no ambiguity, there is no gray area, there is no argument there. Every single intelligence agency that the United States has concluded Russia interfered, meddled in our election. So Robert Mueller was tasked, and that's where Trump Republicans have a problem with Robert Mueller. Robert Mueller was not tasked to investigate Donald Trump. I call in most of the article I wrote about that particular aspect of the problem, Donald Trump is a casualty of his own making. Robert Mueller was tasked to investigate the extent of Russia interference in our system of government. That was the task. Now let me put it in perspective for you. A police officer, a detective is tasked to investigate drug trafficking. That's the primary task. That particular detective was tasked to investigate drug trafficking. Now, if you are a drug dealer, the task itself is not to investigate a particular individual, because that information may not be available, and that information may not even be certain that that particular problem exists, except that there is enough information to say that there could be drug trafficking in certain area. Now that detective was tasked to investigate drug trafficking, let's just say in Massachusetts. Now in the process of doing that, of course, if you are a drug trafficker and you were involved in that business, it goes without saying that during the process of investigation, you will be found to be one of the individuals that are caught in that investigation. Now, to bring the analogy home for you, Robert Mueller was tasked to investigate Russia interference in the 2016 election. Now, whether you're a Trump supporter or not is totally irrelevant. What should be relevant to you is, if you are an American citizen and you are a patriot, it should be relevant to you that the individual in question we're talking about, Donald Trump, if he happened to have been involved, then we should not be rallying behind him and trying to protect him, because it's almost like you saying that the detective who is tasked to investigate drug trafficking, now finding out that your uncle is involved, and you saying that, well, your uncle should not be arrested because, well, the detective wasn't tasked to investigate my uncle. If your uncle is involved in drug trafficking, it goes without saying that he is going to be caught in that net. And once the investigation point fingers and put him as being one of the individual involved in the drug trafficking, so it goes without saying what's going to happen to your uncle. And that's a part that I'm having a very difficult time understanding. How in the world an American patriot would not see that as being a problem, that the person that they are supporting is actually involved. In fact, it's even worse than the example of drug trafficking I just gave you. Of course, drug trafficking is bad enough, but this particular problem we're talking about is even worse, because we have the individual who sit in the Oval Office, who is running the country, may be involved in collaborating with a foreign entity. Actually, Russia is one of the worst enemy for America. Your concern should not be to protect Donald Trump, because if you're doing that, just like if you were to be protecting a drug trafficker, you can rest assured once that drug trafficker is caught, you too may be in the hook, being an accomplice, helping with cover-up, such as, for instance, Devin Nunes, Jim Jordan, Mark Meadows, Trey Gowdy, mostly all of those people whose job would be to protect the country against all enemies. Actually, it's even worse, because those people I just mentioned happen to be part of the intelligence committees in Washington. So Robert Mueller charged to investigate Russia meddling in the 2016 election. Now, I guarantee you, if Donald Trump was not involved, there would be no reason for you to fear. Because if a detective is conducting an investigation of drug trafficking, I would not be concerned, no matter how many times that the detective were to knock at my door asking questions. I would not be concerned. Would you not agree? If there were a shooting in your area, either you don't have a gun or you weren't involved in a shooting and they're conducting an investigation, why would you be concerned about that? You would not be concerned, because you know, no matter how long the investigation lasts, no matter how many times they knock at your door to ask questions about the shooting, you know you're not involved. So you're not concerned. The reason Donald Trump is concerned is because, put two and two together. So when I hear Trump-Republican in general, but Republican legislators in particular in Washington, trying to help Trump cover up it is not something to rejoice. It's not something for you to go along with, because it costing the country, not just in terms of destroying our system of democracy, but it's also destroying the very fabric of our country. Currently in Washington, there are 435 members of Congress, 100 members of the Senate. Now, 230, as of July of this year, 236 members are Republican. There is not a single individual, a single Republican in Washington who, when was elected and went to Washington, took an oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States, to uphold, to protect the United States against all enemies. And yet, not a single Republican stand to say that what is currently going on is not acceptable, because this is not a Republican matter. This is a country matter. That particular problem is a problem for the country. So I am having a very difficult time understanding why exactly do we have 236 Republicans in Congress, 51 Republican senators, and all of them rally behind an individual who could be a member of a foreign government, who could be an asset, an agent for a foreign government. Why in the world would we go along? Why would we Americans go along with that? And the question for the Trump-Republican is this: what if the shoe was on the other foot? What if it were to be Democrat on that same predicament? Would you have gone along with that? Would you have gone along with that idea that you would have a president doing that and you would be okay with it? Rank and file member of the Republican Party, currently 236 in Congress. You know what that costs you? I'm not even factoring those who have a higher position like chairman of a committee, House Speaker, and so on. I'm not even factoring that. I'm taking an average of what those people get paid. $175,000 per congressman. Again, the House Speaker get paid more, a little bit more. I believe it's $225 or $250, and member of chairman of different subcommittee get paid a little bit more than $175,000. But if we take that average, you have $174,000 multiplied by 236 Republican in Congress. 200 would put you almost at 3.4 million. You add another 36 times 174. That's a little bit close to almost $500,000. So you add that together, so almost $4 million. You paying 236 individual. That's taxpayers' money. You paying $4 million to 236 individuals, and there is not a single one of them who would take the position of defending the country. Now, you could be upset about a lot of things because there is nothing that's happening in Washington for the citizen of the country not to be upset about, because a lot of bad things are happening. But in my mind, whenever there is a situation that is of concern to the country, everything else should go on the back burner. Because if you, Republican or Democrat, if you do not take a stand today to say, you know what, I supported Trump, I voted for Trump, but that situation is not acceptable. Because if you don't, when the shoe is on the other foot, you will not have any argument against that president. You would not be able to come and demand that your legislators do anything about it, because today Republican legislators simply let this thing going without putting any check on the executive branch. The reason the country works so far up to this point, the reason our freedom has been preserved up to this point, is because the framers of the Constitution make certain that there are 3 equal branches of the government. Which, what that means is, Donald Trump does not have, cannot tell Congress what to do. When I say Donald Trump, the president, whoever is the president, cannot tell Congress what to do. Because Congress is the legislative branch whose primary job is to attend to the affairs of the people. Their job is to support the view of the people. Currently, in the United States of America, 60% of the people living in the country believe that Donald Trump is on the wrong track, doing the wrong thing, must be impeached, and believe that Donald Trump has collaborated with Russia. 60%, that's a majority. The role of Congress is to go with what the people want, the majority, not a minority. Legislative branch was not created for a minority. So the question is, what do Republicans stand for? I asked the question, what does GOP stand for? And I don't mean the abbreviation. What does GOP stand for? Why exactly are you okay with spending $4 million of your tax money to pay 236 people who are not doing the job for which they were elected? Why? Why would anybody do that? Would you call a contractor and give the contractor money and the contractor doesn't do the job and you would be okay with that? I don't think so. So why would it be okay for the people you elected, no matter which party you belong to? You should be concerned that the people you elected them to do the job of the people. And unless you take a step back, take a look at really what is currently going on, and decide that the country comes first, unless you take that stand and you say your country comes first, it's gonna be a big problem. Because today, if you agree with what the Republicans are doing, quote unquote nothing about the current situation, tomorrow when it's Democrats' turn, then you don't have any way of complaining about it, because it was okay with you when Republicans were doing it. Then you cannot be complaining about Democrats doing it. And that's the way it happens. That's the way a country goes down, and that's the way any system of democracy will not survive if it keeps happening that way. As much as you might want to blame the senators, the congressmen, but the bigger problem really falls on you, the Republican constituent, because you're the one who accepts that particular predicament. You're the one that gives the green light to your congressman, to your senator, to continue doing nothing. You're okay with that, so why would they not be? It's like someone who gets a job and never worked for a day in his or her life and gets a paycheck every pay period. And that's pretty much what is currently going on in Washington. That we have 236 Republican congressmen, 51 Republican senators, who seem to have taken an oath, who seem to have taken an allegiance to Donald Trump and let him do all sort of damage to the country. And there is one simple way to rectify that problem, is to vote all of those people out of office. Because if you hire someone to do a job and that individual either doesn't or cannot do the job, you will not keep that person. You hire a contractor to do your driveway, and that contractor, you pay the contractor to do the driveway, and the contractor failed to do the driveway. I guarantee you, not only you will get rid of that contractor, but you will most likely take that contractor to court to get whatever down payment you already made. And why would you let something like that happen to the country? Why? There is only one United States of America. And don't think, especially if you were born in this era, if you were born at a time where you didn't come here, you were born here in the United States, it may be a little bit difficult for you to comprehend that countries have lost their system of democracy before. Countries that had democracy gone because of things like that happen. It doesn't happen overnight. It happened gradually, just like you see what's going on today. It may be difficult for you to visualize, to imagine, to envision that something like that can happen to the United States. It can happen because gradually you're losing what makes this system of democracy work. First, you have what you currently going, because it has been, our democracy has been eroding gradually through the years, through the decades. Today, for the past couple of years, it has suffered a major crack. And the people who are charged to safeguard our democracy decide to do absolutely nothing about it. Now, if you, that's the last, consider that like the last possible option to prevent this trend from continuing. The last option is we the people. Across the world, people died to have a say on their elected official. People have died for that. They want to have election. They want to elect the person they want to elect, to get rid of the person if he or she is not doing the job for which he or she was elected. Across the world, that has happened, that's still happening. But today, here in the United States of America, we have a serious problem. One of the branches of our government is not working. And the reason is actually very simple. Republicans are in control of both houses. And they have made it their business to do absolutely nothing about the erosion of our democracy. It's not that they cannot do anything. It's not that they don't have the tool. It's just that they have opted to do nothing. And if you are a patriot, it doesn't matter which political party you belong to. If you are a patriot, you cannot stand for that. You cannot accept that. There is no excuse. Because if you make excuses today for Republican, well, don't complain when you're hearing Democrats making excuses for Democrats. And as it goes this way, today is Republican, tomorrow is Democrat, and then it goes this way and that way until you wake up one day and you find out that there is no more democracy in America. Yes, it sounds far-fetched, but that's exactly what happened in Turkey, for instance. For 70 years, Turkey was a democratic system of government. When Tayyip Erdogan took over, and because they were trying to get rid of him, now he consolidated power, he jailed journalists, put his opponent in jail, and today the only voice that matters in Turkey is Tayyip Erdogan. For 70 years, so it's not something that happened yesterday. For 70 years, that was a democratic system with a constitution just like the United States, with a parliamentary system just like the United States. Today, Turkey is reeling against what you would call an authoritarian. Yes, you can lose democracy in America if you don't do anything about it. And this is your chance to do something about it. Next episode, we will tackle a very sensitive part of this conversation, that there are possibilities, there are signs that other Republicans other than Donald Trump may also have been collaborating with Russia. and this is not a joke. And it seems to address the reason that we're seeing what we're seeing today in Washington, that there are other Republicans besides Donald Trump who may have been involved in collaborating with Russia. I'll be right back.
I'm going to tell you what I really think of Donald Trump. This man is a pathological liar. He doesn't know the difference between truth and lies. He lies practically every word that comes out of his mouth. And in a pattern that I think is straight out of a psychology textbook, his response is to accuse everybody else of lying. He accuses everybody on that debate stage of lying. And it's simply a mindless yell. Whatever he does, he accuses everyone else of doing. The man cannot tell the truth, but he combines it with being a narcissist. A narcissist at a level I don't think this country's ever seen.
I'm Jeff Gannett, CEO of Macy's, and I wanted to take a moment of your time to thank you for being such an amazing customer, because I truly believe that Macy's customers are the greatest in the world. Recently, you said you wanted a simpler rewards program. Well, I'm here to say that we've heard you, and starting this month, we're introducing the new and improved Macy's Star Rewards, a reimagined, simpler rewards program starring you. You said you wanted more savings. All members at every level get 25% off any day you choose with Star Passes. You said you wanted free shipping. Gold status means getting free shipping with no minimum, plus the silver status benefit. You said you wanted better rewards. Platinum status means 5% back in rewards every day on all Macy's merchandise, no exclusions, plus gold and silver status benefits. We want Macy's customers to know they are the best customers in the world. And we want each and every one of our cardholders to know that with the new Macy's Star Rewards, it is your time to shine.
Meet the new Macy's Star Rewards, exclusive to cardholders. Discover your status today at Macys.com/Star Rewards.
In 1996, a small network by the name of Fox News was launched with just 17 million viewers. Today, with over 100 million people watching regularly, Fox has become the greatest threat to our democracy, constantly bombarding the airwaves with false information, distortion of facts, and outright lies, presenting to its audience as news. Fox has created an army of blissful ignorance. According to a recent survey, 82% of Fox viewers are ignorant of facts and the truth. To keep millions of people in ignorance not only prevents democracy from flourishing, but it also clears the path to authoritarianism, to dictatorship. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "Nothing in all the world is more dangerous than sincere ignorance and conscientious stupidity." Let me finish by saying that democracy cannot survive in an environment where truth and facts do not matter. At Fox, truth and facts do not matter. Indeed, democracy in America is in jeopardy. It is a crisis the country can no longer ignore. The picture you're currently looking at is a group of Republicans taking the oath of office. What we have been talking about, the oath to protect, to defend, to uphold the Constitution of the United States and to protect the country against all enemies, foreign or domestic. As we have been discussing today, however, they have relinquished their task to do so. Another piece of news, Republicans, constituents, still in the dark. Most Republicans, especially those who support Donald Trump, still live very largely in the dark, and that is despite the wide availability of the internet. The cause of the problem is not lack of information, but rather an inclination to seek for sources of information which support their preset views, however false and misleading. As such, Trumpublicans are more inclined to reject any information which does not support their views, does not please them, or is critical of Donald Trump. They do not have to look far. Fox propaganda network, which is known and referred to by most as Fox News, is the major source of misinformation, disinformation, distorted information, wrong information, and even outright lies. Other sources of information such as Rush Limbaugh, Breitbart, InfoWars, Daily Caller, The Hill have all contributed greatly to nurture and preserve the dummification of the Republican Party. The problem, however, is exacerbated by the GOP legislators who push false narrative in order to consolidate their base, even when it is to the detriment of the country. Such posture on the part of the Republican leaders and the GOP propaganda networks constitute the main conduit to taking the country down a wrong path. Who in the Republican Party will muster enough courage, now that John McCain has passed, to shine the light for the Republican constituent? As of this moment, most in the Republican Party still live in the dark. I'll be right back.
I'm not going to try to get into the mind of Donald Trump because I don't think there's a whole lot of space there. I think he's a kook. I think he's crazy. I think he's unfit for office. And I'm a Republican and he's not. He's not a conservative Republican. He's an opportunist. He could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and 25 to 30% of the people would still follow him because he gives voice to their anger and their frustration. But he's not fit to be President of the United States.
I'm telling you, Michael Jordan himself was right here in my McDonald's. I fixed him the very first McJordan special. Right, Bill. I did. I took a quarter pound of pure beef, smoked bacon, cheese, and some of my favorite barbecue sauce, and I named it the McJordan Special.
Bill, the sandwich, definitely great.
Yeah, but you got the cooling with that story.
But it's true.
How you doing, Bill?
Hi, Michael. Michael.
The McJordan Special for a limited time.
Donald Trump is wrong to call the media the enemy of the country. Adolf Hitler did exactly the same thing in 1933, accused the media of fabrication before he moved to censor everything that was printed. This move is very standard for any authoritarian, for any dictator. We knew before it happened that Donald Trump was not fit for the Oval Office. But we stay silent in the name of fairness. We knew before it happened Donald Trump would be a disaster for the world. But we stay silent in the name of fairness. We knew beforehand Donald Trump is a racist, but we stay silent in the name of fairness. We, members of the media, can no longer stay silent. Journalists are not in the business of fairness. Our business, our only business, is to be objective. Let us from now on hold the Trump administration accountable. It is our job. It is the only reason to be in this business. It is our duty to hold Trump and every administration accountable. Today, it is urgent, it is necessary, it is critical. Our very freedom depends on it.
Don't go anywhere. The Fourth Branch program will return in just a moment.
Join me here on the Fourth Branch at 10:30 a.m. and 6:30 p.m. every Saturday. I thank you for watching, and I hope you can join me for the part 2 of this series, where we will discuss the detail of why most Republicans today are doing everything possible to protect Donald Trump. But the secret behind that seems to lie in the fact that there are other Republicans in Washington who may also be involved in the collaboration with a foreign entity. So don't miss the next episode so you can get the raw detail as to why the whole country has been upset with Republicans for doing absolutely nothing. Have a great afternoon.